Hello friends, today I'll be reading Chapter 4 of Maddie the Playtime Fairy. It is called A Daring Plan. Let's start. A Daring Plan. The two goblins were now standing beside Lewis's bag. The biggest goblin stretched out his hand, ready to swap the bags over. "I can't watch," said Rachel, closing her eyes. But at that moment, Caroline looked around and noticed the goblins. "Hold it," she said. "You're not allowed to start the picnic until sports day has finished. Be patient, boys." Rachel, Kirsty and Maddie let out a long sighs of relief. That had been close. "We have to think of a way to reach that bag without goblins or Caroline stopping us," said Kirsty. "I have a plan," said Rachel eagerly. "Caroline is busy watching the race, Maddie. Could you turn us into fairies? We could distract the goblins while you fly to the sports bag and take the tiara." "That's a great plan," said Maddie. They darted behind a bush and Maddie waved a wand. There was a puff of glittering fairy dust and the girls felt themselves dwindling to fairy size. Delicate wings appeared on their backs and they fluttered them in delight. "Oh, so they turned to fairy." "I'll go and distract the third goblin," said Kirsty. She zoomed after the goblin who was in the hoop race. He was rolling his hoop close to the edge of the lake, so Kirsty flew low over the water, weaving her way through the reeds and trailing branches of the weeping willows that lined the lake. Luckily, the other children were further away, so it was easy to keep out of sight. As the goblin's hoop rolled close to the reeds, Kirsty darted out and flicked it away, making sure that the goblin saw her. He gave a yell of rage. "You pesky fairy! Leave my hoop alone!" Kirsty flicked the hoop again, sending it careering towards the maze where the girls had their adventure with Princess Anna, the Happy Days fairy. She flew next to it, keeping it rolling swiftly along. "You have to come back here now!" squawked the goblin, chasing after her. "That's right. Follow me as fast as you can," said Kirsty under her breath. "It's all up to Rachel and Maddie now." Rachel had been thinking hard about how to distract the other two goblins. "When Kirsty and I were playing in the royal nursery, we were playing with a cup and ball game," she told Maddie. "Perhaps if you could magic up something like that, it might take the goblins' minds off the bag." She described the game to Maddie, who nodded and waved a wand. At once, two sets of cup and ball game appeared on the grass between the goblins and the bag. Caroline was still watching the race and had her back to them. "I'll keep the goblins distracted while you get your tiara," said Rachel. Good luck to you too," said Maddie, giving her a hug. "I think you and Kirsty are really brave." Rachel smiled and slipped quickly inside one of the cups. "What's that?" she heard one of the goblins say in surprise. "It's a toy," the other goblin exclaimed, picking it up. Rachel darted out of the cup and the goblins gave a squawk of surprise. "It's one of those tricksy fairies," he squealed. "Catch her!" Rachel flitted and zoomed around and round the goblins, keeping just out of reach of their grasping, clutching hands. They looked like giant frogs as they leapt into the air, stretching out their scrawny arms to try to reach her. The goblins did a lot of shouting and squawking, but luckily Caroline was just out of earshot. As Rachel was drawing the goblins further and further away from the bag, Maddie was edging nearer to it. She stayed close to the ground, concealing herself among the thick blades of grass. The bag was close to Caroline's feet, and Caroline herself was hopping around in excitement, calling out encouragement to the teams. Several times, Maddie had to flit sideways to avoid Caroline's feet, and that made it difficult to reach the bag. At that moment, shouts and cheers broke out. The race had finished. The goblins spun around, forgetting all about Rachel. "Now's our chance," said the biggest goblin to the others. As Caroline hurried forward to congratulate the winners, he sprinted towards the bag. Rachel zoomed in front of him and darted back and forth, trying to distract him, but he just batted her away with his hand. Rachel could only watch in horror as he swapped the bags without Caroline noticing a thing. The goblins had got the tiara back. What on earth could Kirsty and Rachel do now? So that's the end of Chapter 4, A Daring Plan. I'll be reading the next chapter with you in the next video. Bye!